ranking every Star Wars movie and TV show from worst to best. In last place, I have The Rise of Skywalker. Listen, I actually like the first two sequel movies, but this one is an absolute disaster. Almost every decision made in this film is incredibly dumb. Right from the opening scroll, you know you're in trouble when it says, "Oh, the dead speak, Palpatine is back." I still can't believe they did that. Every single scene with him in this movie is incredibly stupid. The reveal that Rey is in fact Palpatine's granddaughter completely takes away everything from her character. She would have been 10 times more interesting truly being a nobody. The list of dumb things goes on and on. Chewbacca's fake out death, a terrible scene that actually would have had so much impact if Rey really accidentally killed Chewbacca here. I don't like Hux being a spy. I don't think Kylo should have turned to the light side. Everything in this movie is just terrible. I have to say something nice about this film. I do think visually it actually looks pretty good. Like, a lot of the shots are cool. I like the planet of Exegol, how it looks. I just hate everything with Palpatine happening on it. And I do love getting Orlando returning in this movie. He's just so much fun every time he's on screen. At number 26, I have The Acolyte. Somehow the dialogue in this is even worse than the prequel movies, which should be impossible to achieve, but this is just some very, very bad writing. I don't think any of the performances really stand out outside of Manny. I think he was very interesting as this Sith Lord, but overall, this was just pretty painful to sit through. I did not care about any of the characters. There's like one or two cool fight scenes and one interesting reveal, and that's pretty much it. Now it's canceled, and we're never going to see it continued anyways. At number 25 is the Book of Boba Fett. I don't know how they took a character that was so interesting for just being mysterious as this bad guy mercenary going around the galaxy doing these different jobs and stuff. They took that character, put him into the show, and made him like the most friendly, boring guy in the entire galaxy. I don't understand the angle of making him like this good guy in this show. It is painfully boring to sit through. There are some of the worst sequences, like this goofy chase scene in this series, and the only good stuff about the entire series is the Mandalorian episodes where he comes back in and you get to see Grogu with Luke Skywalker. But I'm not even giving the Book of Boba Fett credit for having that, because A, that reunion should have never happened, or it should have simply just happened in the Mandalorian TV show. It's not even a part of the Book of Boba Fett. At number 24, I have the Clone Wars movie. This is just not very good. Listen, the Clone Wars TV show has some very special moments in it, but sadly the movie really doesn't. It was so early on. The animation in this is brutal to look at. The story is pretty boring. This is just really not worth your time at all. At number 23, I know I'm alone in this one, but I have the Bad Batch. Now, I actually like the Bad Batch characters themselves. I think they're a lot of fun and their dynamic with each other is great. But in my opinion, this series gets completely derailed by the character of Omega. I think she is incredibly annoying. 90% of the episodes just follow the formula of the Bad Batch doing some mission, almost completing it, and then Omega either messes it up or makes them go back in some way, shape, or form. It feels very repetitive, and I simply just did not care about this series at the end of the day. Number 22, I have Tales of the Underworld. I think this is the weakest and least interesting version of the Tale series we've gotten. Like Ventress, it should have been cool exploring her side, but honestly, all of this just kind of fell flat to me. Now, hold on to your hats, because yes, at number 21, I have The Mandalorian and Grogu. I do not remember the last time I have been this bored with a film, which is such a shame because I do love so much of the Mandalorian TV show, but this really feels like just three of like the weaker episodes of the series put into a movie. It completely stalls out in the middle of the film. Like, I was literally almost falling asleep. There's almost no character development. None of the side characters matter at all or even feel like real characters that affect the story. Rada the Hutt is an incredibly goofy character. I could not take anything he says seriously. The dialogue in this is seriously painful to listen to. Every single character either says a cliche or just describes their entire motivations or the plot to the audience. There's like no natural dialogue whatsoever in this film. All of the action sequences, like, yeah, there's some cool ones, especially early on in the movie. I think the opening scene is actually really good, but overall, this has no reason to exist. At number 20, I have Skeleton Crew. This is just a fine enough adventure. I think Jude Law is really fun in this. It's just kind of this like band of kids going across the galaxy on this little journey, very small scale stuff. Some of the characters are fun. There's some sweet moments in this. It's pretty just unremarkable overall. I kind of forgot a lot of things that actually happened in this series, and I feel like nobody really watched it, but it was a solid enough series. I wasn't like mad at anything happening in it. At number 19 is the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show. This is honestly such a shame that it isn't like a top 10 Star Wars project. Bringing back Ewan McGregor for an Obi-Wan series should have been an absolute masterpiece. There was so much potential here, but it ended up just feeling incredibly dull and boring. It felt like all they wanted to do was just get some fan service moments of him versus Vader that honestly probably should have never happened. It kind of breaks the canon if you think about it longer than 1 second. I also don't know why they decided to make little kid Leia such a big focus in this series. Like, they were so focused on trying to have like, oh, look at all these different characters from the original trilogy that are in this, when you really could have just had Obi-Wan going on any sort of other their journey, and it would have been way more interesting. At number 18, I have The Phantom Menace because this movie is all over the place. There are some really interesting ideas in this. Obviously, the Duel of the Fates battle with Darth Maul at the end is incredible. I think Qui-Gon Jinn is a super interesting character, but this movie has some of the worst dialogue in all of Star Wars. We know George Lucas is very bad with that. I don't think there was a reason for there to be an entire movie with little kid baby Anakin, because really, after you watch the other two prequel movies, you're like, wait, why on earth do we have to spend so much time watching him do pod racing and just like save the world on accident in the ship and stuff? You literally could have just had some flashbacks to the important moment of baby Anakin in a prequel movie that maybe takes place when he's a little bit older, or maybe in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and it would have made this trilogy feel a lot more coherent. Also, Jar Jar Binks, I'm sorry, I know it's fun to love him now. I think he's actually better in things like the Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith, stuff like that. But in this project, he is pretty unbearable. Like, he says some of the dumbest things in all of Star Wars, and really all the characters do. Like, there will be something that's actually really interesting going on, and then a character just says the worst line of dialogue you've ever heard. At number 17, I have the Tales of the Empire. I think these are kind of just fine. Like, I don't have many big issues besides the fact that it feels like they played it a little bit safe. Like, the stuff with Barriss was almost really interesting, and it just never goes all the way. Way better than the Tales of the Underworld, but again, nothing really remarkable in here. There's no major flaws, though. At number 16, we're getting the movies I actually really enjoy. I have Solo. I think this is actually a pretty fun film. I think Alden Ehrenreich does a great job at playing a young Han Solo. I don't know why there was so much backlash to this and them recasting the character. I much prefer this than just doing like a CGI de-aging. I also think Donald Glover as Lando, he was a ton of fun. There's really lots of great dynamics in this. Like Amelia Clark's character, I kind of forget her name right now, but I think her and Han's dynamic, they were a lot of fun. I think the action in this is pretty solid. It looks good. Like, no, it's nothing revolutionary or super outstanding, but it's just a fun adventure in the Star Wars universe. At number 15, I have Ahsoka. Yes, this definitely should have been animated and it would have been way better. The biggest negative about this is the fight choreography. It is so clunky and slow, but I do think Rosario Dawson is a good live action Ahsoka, even if it would have been better if it was animated. I also really love the stuff with Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. I think them exploring this like dark side of the Force and the Sith history and all that was super interesting. Yes, it still suffers from some of the Dave Filoni just not great dialogue, but you do have some really good stuff with like Thrawn. That's a great performance and a really great portrayal of the character. Obviously, I know it's the same guy that voiced him. It's solid, but it's a shame that season 2 has been delayed until 2027. It's going to be almost 4 full years in between seasons, which is just crazy work. And number 14, I have Attack of the Clones, which I remember absolutely despising, but I just rewatched it like 2 weeks ago and I actually really enjoyed it. Yes, it has some terrible dialogue, and the last like 40 minutes of this film with the droid factory all the way through the Dooku fight, the arena sequence, it is so much CGI slop that does not age well at all. It looks pretty terrible, but I think this actually has some pretty interesting intrigue going on. Like everything with the Camino cloning plot, I think that's actually really great. I also love all the romance we get between Anakin and Padme. The bad dialogue is definitely still there, the I don't like sand line and stuff, but it didn't really bother me as much this time. I still think it actually was really well handled. Opening of this movie with Zam Wexel, that entire chase sequence is a ton of fun. So yes, it's definitely a very flawed film, but it is very ambitious. I like what we learn about the Star Wars universe, all the different planets we're getting into. Like I said, the intrigue is really strong in this film, actually. Number 13, I have Rogue One. Listen, the third act of this film is an absolute masterclass. It is devastating. It's gorgeous. It's just so well done. Everything comes together perfect. But I actually think like the first 2/3 of this movie are hurt by the Andor TV show because it just kind of feels worse and lower quality than what you get in Andor while you're doing the same stuff. It just takes a very long time for this movie to pick up, and there's a long time in between great moments, but like I said, the payoff is there. It wraps everything up together nicely, so that's why it's so high up on the list. Now take 1 second and drop a like on the video, but at number 12, I have the Tales of the Jedi. I actually think this is a really amazing project. We get the 2 stories of Ahsoka and Count Dooku when he was a Jedi. The Ahsoka stuff is really solid, seeing her versus Crow, all those things are great, but the Dooku stuff is honestly some of the most interesting stuff in all of Star Wars. I really wanted to see more of this character. This series delivered in a great way. If you haven't watched it, definitely go check it out. They're very short. At number 11, I have The Last Jedi. I know everybody either like loves or hates this movie, but I just like it. I think it's a very solid film that does indeed have some very stupid things that drags it down. Like I think Rose's entire character should not have been in here. Force Awakens builds up to a very interesting romance kind of brewing between Finn and Rey, and then they just like throw that away, give Finn this like new love interest Rose, who then we forget about in the very next film. So everything with her feels like a waste of time. The Canto Bight planet, which is the casino planet, everything there is also pretty bad. Leia surviving in space and slowly just gliding back, also a very dumb moment. And I will say, I do think the decision to kill Luke Skywalker off was a bad one. But other than that, I actually like how they handle Luke's character. I like the angle of breaking down the mythology around him, having him turn into this hermit on this island after he failed, because then he does ultimately come back with the force projection, gives the rebellion so much hope. I think that entire sequence at the end of him versus Kylo is amazing. It just would have been so much better if he lived in this moment. And this was like the start of him coming back and being a part of the fight for good. I don't think they should have killed him. But the actual space sequence and stuff like the Holdo maneuver in this is actually awesome. I love the bombing run sequence. I don't care if it doesn't make sense of dropping bombs in space. Who cares you're watching Star Wars? I also think, speaking of who cares, the who cares you do throne room fight, I think that's awesome. I love everything with Kylo Ren's character and him and Snoke. Again, all super interesting stuff of Kylo being like, no, I'm not joining Rey, but I'm also going to betray Snoke. I want to do my own thing. They just throw it away in Rise of Skywalker, but there were tons of really interesting ideas in this. I also think Poe gets a huge step up from the last movie he was in with The Force Awakens. Now, before the top 10, drop a like in the video and let me know your top 10 favorite Star Wars projects, or if you're crazy, you can do the entire list like me. But at number 10, I have the Mandalorian TV show. Yes, season 3 of this falls off a cliff. The first like 6 episodes of season 3 are almost unwatchable in my opinion. They're so boring. It just completely loses everything. It undoes the ending of season 2. But those first 2 seasons are super solid. I love the space western vibes. You got some really fun supporting characters. Like Bill Burr's character is absolutely incredible. The ending of season 2 is obviously one of the best Star Wars episodes of all time. It's incredible. Like I said, Din and Grogu's dynamic is an absolute blast. Really, this is all the positives for the first 2 seasons. I just think him and Grogu should have been separated after season 3, and they should not have been reunited in another show. That's what's holding it back. But otherwise, a really solid TV show. At number 9, I have The Force Awakens. I actually think this is a really good movie. Yes, it's muddied by how it all ends in Rise of Skywalker, but if you just view this as its own thing, I think it's actually pretty great. The introduction to all these new characters, Rey, Poe, Finn, it's a ton of fun. The opening scene with Kylo and Finn being the stormtrooper, that's one of the best scenes in Star Wars ever. And speaking of that, I also absolutely adore Kylo killing Han Solo. That absolutely guts me no matter how many times I've watched it. I know it's coming and it still just hits me so hard. This movie also looks great. Yes, it's kind of a rehash of A New Hope, but that's what a lot of Star Wars is. Like Phantom Menace is just as much of a rehash of A New Hope, but nobody complains about that for some reason. At number 8, I have Revenge of the Sith. Yes, this movie still has some of the problems of the first 2 sequels. There's some bad performances in here, some bad line deliveries, but it makes up for it with so many other incredible moments. Really, from the very opening scene, that entire action sequence of them going and saving Palpatine and killing Dooku, that's a ton of fun. I think the intrigue again of Anakin slowly falling to the dark side in this movie, the conversations between him and Palpatine are incredible. Obi-Wan versus Grievous is obviously a ton of fun, and then once this movie has Anakin truly falling to the dark side, then it just never looks back. Like, yes, the actual scene itself of him up there with Mace Windu, I think that is a little rushed, but afterwards, it is just absolutely incredible. Obviously, him going after the younglings and going to Mustafar, the final fight, all incredible. The score is just firing on all cylinders in this movie. Really just an absolute blast of a film. Number 7, I have Return of the Jedi. I think the opening sequence of this movie is an absolute blast, and I think the ending is some of the best stuff ever in Star Wars. The conclusion of this, Vader's semi-redemption. I know a lot of people like to debate if he really redeemed himself or not, but that is such a great moment. Luke's speech when he's talking to Palpatine, that is absolutely incredible. The only reason this isn't higher up on the list is because I'm sorry, I can't do the Ewoks. This movie absolutely dies out on Andor for a little bit, but the highs are so high that I just allow it. At number 6, I have Star Wars Rebels. The animation is very jarring when you first watch this, and it does improve a little bit, but it's still not the greatest thing in the world. But the story and characters here are really just so great, so charming. Absolutely love them all. Kanan became one of my favorite Jedi in all of Star Wars history. Ezra, Hera, Zeb. It's just such a fun cast of characters. You really care for them as one of the best like found families in all TV, honestly. The fight scenes are pretty solid overall, even if the animation isn't the best. The way the story just keeps progressing, the stakes get higher, the characters actually grow and go through a lot in this. It's really just a super solid show. Definitely watch it if you haven't. At number 5, I know it's high, but I don't care. I have Maul Shadow Lord. And honestly, after season 2 comes out, if it's the same quality, this might go even higher on my list. I don't remember the last time I have been this hooked on a TV show. Every single week, I was so excited for the new episodes, and they always delivered. Like, there is not a single mediocre episode of this. Every single episode was great. I mean, obviously, Sam Witwer as the voice of Darth Maul is just incredible, but this entire supporting cast is also great. You got Lawson as this like beat down cop kind of. He's like the noir detective. Then you got the Jedi like Frog Turtle Man, Iko Dikodaki, and his apprentice Riley. Absolutely love these two characters, what they go through, and how their stories end in this first season. Absolutely amazing stuff. The music is incredible. The animation, some of the best Star Wars animation we've ever seen. They've mastered that Clone Wars style. The painted backgrounds are gorgeous. I really just loved every single second of this. I have no negatives. At number 4, I have Andor. Listen, I know it's this high up on the list, and it sounds crazy to say that I'm not as high in it as everybody else, because I do think it's a great TV show. There are some amazing performances. The writing is some of the best in all of Star Wars history, and the highs are so high. But I do think in season 2, I wasn't the biggest fan of the arc structure of skipping like a year every time. I didn't think that worked. Like, don't get me wrong, the individual episodes in the arcs are still great, but every time we'd have that big time jump, I was just like, oh, I kind of wish we didn't have this, and it was more like season 1. And I do think season 1 actually takes a few episodes to get going. I think it takes until about like episode 4 or 5, but then it really never turns back. Like the prison escape in season 1 and things like the Gorman massacre in season 2 are just absolutely devastating. You've got so many incredible characters that all have such great agency on their own. When it's firing on all cylinders, it's really some of the best Star Wars content we've got. Number 3, I have Clone Wars. Yes, it's less consistent than Andor, Maul, probably even Rebels. There are some just straight up bad to mediocre filler episodes all throughout this because it's a very long show. But there are so many amazing arcs in this. It makes the prequels 10 times better. I think this is the best version of Anakin we ever got. He's way better than Hayden Christensen. Shout out to Matt Lanter. It fleshes out this world in such an interesting way, all the different planets and characters you meet. It introduces us to Ahsoka, who's just one of the best Star Wars characters of all time. And like I said, the way this thing ends at the very end and ties right into the Revenge of the Sith movie, it just makes it so much better. Now is your last chance. Drop a like on this video if you haven't already. But at number 2, I have Star Wars A New Hope. And at number 1, I have Empire Strikes Back. I'm not going to waste your time. These are the top two. Two just absolutely extraordinary movies, obviously. Like, what can I say that hasn't been said about these movies? But they're hilarious. They're heartfelt. The characters are so incredible. Dynamic between Luke, Han, Leia, Darth Vader, one of the best villains of all time. He is incredible in these two movies. And they are just simply the best Star Wars has had. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. I know I missed a few like Resistance and Visions, but I'm sorry. I'm not wasting my time watching those. I know they're going to be very low on my list. I'm just not interested in them. If you want to see my full and detailed review of The Mandalorian and Grogu, click the video at the top of the screen. Or if you want to see my full in-depth review of Maul Shadow Lord, click the video at the bottom. And thank you so much for watching.